Did you see that OBS Chevy that I sent you today?
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. All right. We got to talk about that later, but it is Halloween first.
Yes, with your hosts, Gory Scarroll.
Oh, yeah.
And Batty Riley and
Batty Riley.
Peter Ooze.
That's good. I actually, it's funny. For years, I've tried to think of like just a good spooky version of my name, and I've always come up blank, like, and I was thinking about it for tonight because obviously you guys have really good ones, and so I went I went to the good old Chat GPT.
It's a violation of podcast
Crawling
policy.
back to your overlords.
And I said, I need a spooky version of my name, Peter Hughes. And it said, sure, here are a few spooky twists for Peter Hughes. One, these are so dumb. One, Phantom Hughes. Petrified Hughes. Peter Howells Hughes. Gravekeeper Hughes, which that I kind of like. Ghoulter Hughes. Peter Haunts. Plague Bringer Hughes. That I like a lot. Pierce the Veil Hughes. Rotter Hughes. And Spectre Hughes. Those were its suggestions. And I did like Plague Bringer Hughes, but it seems like, I mean, and then I just said, hey, what's a spooky word that rhymes with Hughes? And it came back with Peter Ooze, which that's the winner. I mean, that's the obvious. Peter Ooze.
Yeah.
Peter Ooze.
So I think I'm just going to go with that.
All right.
That's tough.
Gory Scarroll, Batty Riley, and Peter Ooze. Pretty good.
You just have to know, Peter, the fact that you did that has changed the way I think about you forever.
The thing is, I created a Chat GPT account like about a year ago, just because I was curious, because Patricia, my wife, who's not a native English speaker, and who has to, she's a teacher and she has to communicate with parents a lot. And it takes her like she spends so much time just writing like emails to parents, and then like bringing them, like she'll bring it to me to proofread, and she's like super paranoid about it, and just about getting stuff wrong, whatever. And I just thought, like, shouldn't fucking Chat GPT be able to do this? And I created an account, and the first thing I put into it was like, write a letter to a parent from a kindergarten teacher about, XYZ. I don't remember. And it just came back with like in 2 seconds, like a 5-paragraph thing. And it's just like, oh my God, like there's one person in the world who fucking needs this. And it's my wife. And so I told her about it, and she was like, oh, okay. Yeah, that's a good idea. And then like a year went by, and somebody like, now it's kind of catching on at the school where she teaches.
Ruh-roh.
And because they're trying to shove it down everybody's fucking throats, because the kids all need to know AI, but which of course is completely stupid. But now she's actually using it to like to help her write emails, and it's making her life a lot easier. So
the one
like,
use case.
that's the legitimate use case for that shit. Yeah. As well as coming up with Peter Ooze. Peter Ooze was out there, and I wasn't going to get it, and so yeah.
Did I ever tell you about when we had to use AI, so-called AI at work for Jalopnik?
No, I can't wait to hear this.
So a year ago or so, I got this like presentation about like, look, we're going to start testing some AI articles, and like, we're going to start making some posts with AI, and we're not replacing anybody, but we just want to kind of see what is possible with this thing. And usually my MO at the job was to kind of fall on those landmines to make sure that like they didn't get like really popular or like get like a running start,
Yeah.
Malicious compliance. Yeah.
You got to nip it in the bud.
Yeah. So I was like, yeah, I'll test it. Like, volunteered or whatever. And we spent at least a couple months with this, and it was like we ended up, it couldn't, like, I was trying to explain to the tech guys on our team, I was like, look, the thing about car people is they are super finicky and picky when it comes to facts. And I was like, there are like car books where it's like stuff is disputed, and like all the sources you're going to be pulling from are kind of like disputed or disputable in a lot of cases. And I was like, it's going to create like a credibility thing in the newsroom if we publish this stuff. And they're like, oh, okay. So let's think about it. And we like thought, and it was like, okay, what we do have is we have this huge database of car facts, makes, models, measurements, colors, displacement, horsepower, all that stuff. We were licensing it through this company called Chrome. And they were like, we can use it based on that to create ranked lists, which are like, 20 years ago, those would have been like a big traffic driver, like the highest horsepower American car, whatever.
Sure.
Not at Jalopnik, but like at BuzzFeed or whatever. And so we started doing that process, which like, okay, sounds simple enough, but what you get is this massive fucking list, half of which has the wrong information in it, and you have to have an editor sit there and comb through and fucking check every single thing. And it was a nightmare. I was like, we did a couple of them, and it was like, okay, is this publishable? And I was like, maybe it is publishable. It's like as far as accuracy, but it was like, it ended up being like longest Korean cars. It's like, because you had to narrow it down to a couple, like to such a degree to get it. So it was like, here's a list of the 10 longest Korean cars, and it was like, I ended up having this like come to Jesus thing with the tech guys, and I was like, look, like, I'm pretty sure this is accurate within like my ability to fact check it. It's taken me like 10 or 15 hours of my time, which is like pretty valuable dollars and cents wise at the company, to get there. So I don't think this is really cost effective. We could publish this, but it's very stupid. Like, it's a very dumb thing to put on the website. And they're like, well, what do you want?
Wait, who came up with the idea for that?
It was like, we had to get, it was just like the way this evolved, because like, okay, highest horsepower German cars, like there was a problem with the data set to do that. There was like, every data set we had, like there was some kind of problem with it. And it was like, that was one of the ones that actually like was salvageable, like with enough editing time.
Yeah.
I don't remember whose idea it was, but it was like, it was just like,
it's so funny.
It would have been really funny. And I like, in hindsight, it would have been really funny, but so we ended up killing it, and they were like, well, what can AI do? Like, what would be useful for AI? And I was like, look, AI, I don't think can really do anything. But I was like, the good thing is what all these companies are doing is they're just using whatever algorithm and just calling it AI. And I was like, we can do the same thing. Like,
yeah.
What you guys should do is build a gallery generator tool that'll like build slideshow galleries for people like automatically, and then just put out a press release and say it's AI. And they were like, oh. And that's what we did. So like we had this, like, but it was like
incredible.
So we have this like gallery tool where you could just take like a big file folder of photos and like click around. It's kind of a clunky sheet, like a spreadsheet, and then push a button and it generates the whole slideshow for you.
Dude.
And that's the thing.
This is how I build tables for my website, is I plug things into a spreadsheet and then I just copy and paste like a bunch of different HTML tags. I just replace the stuff in the fields that I've standardized. You can get away with so much with a spreadsheet, dude.
You're doing AI.
I'm the AI now.
Yeah.
Now I'm the AI. No, the only time I ever used that stuff was back when they were originally coming out with the one where it would like generate the OpenAI one that would generate like an image or like a set of images from your prompts, and you could like put a bunch of like fine tune your prompts like with a bunch of different words. Mostly I was just using it to ask it to make pictures of Columbo hanging out with the Moomins. Hello to one of our Patreon subscribers. I made this for you. Or I was asking it to generate like when the chat one came out, I think I tried asking it if it I wanted to see if it could threaten my job, which was asking it to write fan fiction. It was very bad at it, so I'm still king of the mountain. Thank you.
Yeah. I don't think we have really anything to worry about.
I mean, it turns out that the thing that it's actually useful for is just writing bullshit emails. Yeah. It's just like responding to your boss about some bullshit that he's probably like bothering you, like telling an AI prompt to generate a thing to harass you.
Listen,
it's the Zizek thing about like you just put two sex toys in the room and have them do it, and then you're free to talk.
That's exactly what it is.
Listen, you joke, but those email jobs are jobs. Email work is work.
Yeah, man.
Sending emails back and forth is the way I've made my living for a long time. So let's not denigrate it.
Rory, thank you for giving us our first spooky story of the night, which is telling us about Jalopnik making you use AI. That's one.
Actually, most of my job is trying to parse emails that are written by someone who's not a professional writer, and I think the AI thing actually might make my job more efficient, because I spend a lot of time reading what PR people sent me and trying to understand what they're trying to say.
Yeah.
So maybe, but yeah, I'm not scared of AI. It's not even a little bit spooky, but what is a little bit spooky are some of the stories that got sent to us. Or is it spooky that no stories got sent to us?
I got one.
Okay.
Peter got one?
Did you get...
Is it from Fernando?
No, he
Okay.
He said that he sent you some. He first sent me a message on Insta. And it was the beginning of a story, and just as it was kind of getting to the part where it seemed like it was going to get scary. It cut off, and I guess because of the character limit on Instagram messages.
That's funny.
I said, dude, you left me hanging. I'm hooked. Send me the rest. And he said that he sent it to you.
Yes, that's right.
So do you have it?
I do. I'm looking for it right now.
Okay.
All right.
So Fernando, wonderful guy. He did some really incredible design work for Auto Week, and then has since been doing stuff for Acura, and has been just kind of a friend of the pod for a few years, and is now just learning to weld to replace the suspension mounts on his Mercedes. I forget what he has, like maybe a 300 TE. Does that sound right?
Sure.
But he
W124.
I think so, yeah. But he's getting into welding with like a structural safety component of his car, which is like man after my own heart. Like, absolutely, like Like,
Hey man, go big or go
yeah,
home.
let's do a couple practice runs on some spare steel, and then go straight to the thing that holds my front wheel on,
Yeah.
which I love. But he relayed this story. I guess I can read it, and I will say, as I think the tradition was on the Auto Week podcast, it's you want these stories to be spooky but not too scary, because this is a podcast for everybody. Right. And yeah, I will tell the parents who are listening to this in their car right now, it's spooky, but it's not too scary. If you have kids in the car, they're going to be okay. Maddie, I hope you can overlay some scary Halloween type sound effects to this.
I'm on.
Okay. I'm going to skip the part, hi Peter, I'm a friend of Rory's. Okay. I'm an art director.
You haven't skipped it. No, you included it.
No. Well, there's more to it.
Oh, okay.
There was some explanation of who he is to me.
Okay.
I'm an art director and a designer for an ad agency that works on the Acura brand. Ooh, I've been working with them for a few years, but now. But early on, I was asked to come up with a campaign design for the 22 MDX. Ooh, the project went great and is still some of my favorite work, and it is actually very cool.
Which one is the MDX? Just so I can picture it in my head. Is that
the bigger crossover?
The kind of sporty one? I think I might have ridden in one of those last week.
Yeah, they're actually pretty good.
Yeah. Okay.
And I say that not because it's an Acura, because it's a crossover. The project went great. Oh shit! I lost my spot. That's scary.
Sorry.
Project went great, and is still some of my favorite work. As you probably know, a lot of campaign work is started sometimes years in advance. So a lot of my work is confidential because there are images and graphics of cars that have not been released yet. So I had finished up the project for the 22 MDX, and I started seeing marketing images through the socials for the new SUV. Excited to share as well, I posted a ton of different images and layouts I had done on my website, LinkedIn, and Instagram. After I posted, I went out for a run, and about an hour after posting, my phone started buzzing like crazy. I usually don't answer my phone when I'm running, so I let the first two run through. But it kept ringing. Texts, IG messages, emails. Finally, I stopped running and answered the phone. So one of the account managers for Acura's marketing... answered the phone. So one of the account managers for Acura's marketing team yelling at me that I had in fact leaked the Type S version of the MDX, for which they had an event planned later that year. Face goes white. That's in parents. Let's just say I set my personal record for pace on the way back home, and I deleted all the images with the Type S MDX. I guess a high-up marketing director in Japan had seen my post and immediately rang the U.S. team. Luckily, I still work for them and Acura, but they make sure to remind me about what is cool to share and what is not cool to share. Now, Fernando, let me just say, as someone who has fucked up a number of embargoes over the years, it's fine. They don't like it. But I think oftentimes you accidentally leaking an image. This is like this is really a good time for me to be talking about this between jobs. But often what you leaking the image results in more eyeballs than that would normally get when they plan to release it. So if you were to see a press release...
You're just doing it DC style, yeah.
Yeah, that said Acura MDX Type S out in the world, you might write a story about it. People might click on that story. But if you see leaked images and it's like way early, then a lot of people are going to click on it. A lot of people are going to see those things. I mean, it may mess up your PR plan overall to have a car leaked like a year in advance. Sure, I'll give you that. But I don't know. I think you take some good with the bad as far as getting the extra exposures. Don't feel too bad about having leaked those. I'm sure you didn't make a huge dent in the sales of the MDX Type S, even as scared as you were. This is a really bad feeling, though. I gotta say, when you put something up,
Oh yeah.
and someone starts calling you, and you look down, and you're like, "Oh boy, I know what this is about." Was that?
No, this is like.
Did I schedule that 8 p.m. story for 8 a.m.?
This is like targeted horror for people with like any level of social anxiety, where like I send a text and I don't hear anything back for like 5 minutes, and I'm like, that's it. Somehow you did it. You did it this time.
We're not friends anymore.
It's happened.
We're not friends.
Yeah.
I don't like you.
But it's every day forever.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Imagine the guy at Acura yelling at you is almost, it's kind of better, because it's like, oh, now that one did happen, and it was real, and I know why. There was no ambiguity.
I love getting yelled at. I gotta tell you, I have like, I do like, I like talking to people, and I like having social interactions. I think I'm a pretty like outgoing type person, but I do love getting yelled at when someone's really mad at you. That's always very funny to me. It's just because it's like, what are we gonna do here? Like
we're both adults.
Yeah,
Why?
like,
come on, man.
Where is this going?
Bro,
where is this going? Like, I get you're mad.
I'm just kind of like.
I get that. I get that you're mad and everything, and like, or maybe your boss wants you to be mad, but it's like, where's this gonna end up? You know what I mean? Like, it's always.
What are we accomplishing here?
Yeah, I do. It's like one of my little pleasures, and I always have a hard time trying to keep it under wraps, like how funny it is to me. But it's just like there was a. Maybe I'll tell this story someday on the pod, but I went to this international sex trafficker's house one time, and I got pulled into their security office, and their head of security just raged at me for a long time, and it was like, "Oh, are you gonna shoot me? Are you gonna bury me on the property here?" And then I thought for a second, I was like, maybe maybe that will happen.
If anyone's gonna do it, yeah.
It's like, actually that could happen. But that's
Castle Dracula.
That's a story for another day, I think.
Yeah.
Sadly, because I think that's probably the scariest car story that I've ever heard in my entire fucking life.
It is literally
like the most
scared I've
genuinely terrifying.
Yeah.
Legitimately, all jokes aside. Legitimately fucking terrifying.
I genuinely have never been more scared, including the time when I stuck an ankle grinder in my chest. I've never been more scared than I was at that moment. And maybe we'll have to create like another PR or another Patreon tier for I will call you on the phone and tell you my story about when this happened to me.
Literally, like, you're gonna have to PayPal Rory $50 just like tomorrow to hear.
You
this
have
one.
to come keep watch outside my house for a couple weeks.
Yeah, well, I mean,
You gotta-
I the thing is, anybody who hears that story is then kind of implicated and in danger themselves. I mean,
Right.
as all three of us are.
Yeah. All right, what else we got?
We have a long story from Gabriel. It's about a Kia Spectra, 2008.
That's a spooky car.
It's
Spooky car.
It's scary from the jump. Says in 2022, I drove out to Portland in a Kia Spectra 2008 that I had bought off my sister in 2020, who had bought it off her friend's grandma in 2018/19, whose grandma had let it sit in a Buffalo driveway for 10 years, only to take it to the grocery store probably every other week, if that. So we're starting pretty scary.
Yeah.
First big purchase after graduating college, $3,000, mind you, basically all I had to my name. I named the car Dolores after the main character in Westworld, parentheses, bad idea. Anyways, in 2022, I followed a woman I loved out to Portland so she could study medicine and we could continue kindling the embers of a slowly dying but still warm relationship. The drive out from Buffalo to Portland was about 4 days, and somewhere in the dusty plains of eastern Montana, where the antelope ran beside my little beater, packed with all my belongings on a long, mostly unpaved back road, I was mid-thought looking out at the plains thinking, hey, this is real freedom, when my car popped a tire and I was 100 miles from the nearest town. I'm not sure why you'd be driving on an unpaved road en route from Buffalo to Portland, but maybe just getting free.
Because of freedom, yeah.
That's why they hate us. I was 100 miles from the nearest town, so flat tire, middle of nowhere. Well, I popped on the spare and rolled my way to town, spent a couple hours with some tough but sweet on the inside folk in what looked like a Hollywood set of a ghost town, trying to find their burn piles attire to match Dolores's. No luck. Had to drive another 100 miles to the nearest Walmart, praying the whole way there. One and only time I was grateful to any extent for any corporation. They had exactly the one and real cheap. Trouble
this
was...
is not... Sorry to interrupt. This is not dissimilar from the plot of Cars, the first Cars movie.
Is that right?
I mean,
Is that true?
It's kind of... You guys haven't seen Cars?
I mean, I haven't seen it in a long time.
No.
And I really...
No.
I mean, I saw it...
No.
Thing is, I was a grown up when it came out, and I watched it.
I was also a grown up when it came out.
I watched it with my daughter at some point, and I didn't pay super close attention to it. I did pay attention.
One of these episodes,
Because-
I'm going to recount
Yeah.
beat by beat the entire plot of every Cars movie, all three Cars movies.
Awesome. I can't
That'll
wait.
be
I'm so excited.
A little bonus episode.
That'll be a Patreon episode. I'm
Yeah.
excited.
Okay.
All right, sorry.
Okay, good.
Go ahead.
No, yeah. Carry on.
I like that idea. We should do the same with all the Fast and Furious movies, and then we should do the same with Grand Prix and Le Mans.
Also have not seen those. Also haven't seen either of
Oh
those.
my God. All right.
I know. Well, you two are going to... I know for a fact that's going to be, oh God, my dads are fighting because someone here likes those latter movies, and I think someone else, last I heard, not so much.
What is...
That was a discussion on the Auto Week podcast. Grand Prix and Le Mans.
Is somebody anti Grand Prix and Le Mans movie?
I'm anti Le Mans.
Really?
As a movie, the footage is great, but as a movie, it's not good.
Oh man.
I knew this was coming. I knew when we signed up for the pod, this day would come. I knew it.
I also have a McQueen thing. I don't care for Steve McQueen.
I think Steve McQueen is overrated. I think his Steve McQueen as the kind of emblem of all that is, as the kind of paragon of masculine coolness, I think is a bit overdone. More of a James Garner guy myself.
Yeah.
But for me, I mean, I still think it's a great movie. But
I think both those movies. Sorry to digress.
That's what we're here for. Yeah.
Yeah, but both those movies are really good as far as like capturing footage of cool race cars. The movie part of them is a little weak in both cases, I believe.
I mean, yes, I will. Yeah, no, I will listen to that argument, but for me, it doesn't matter. I feel like it's kind of beside the point. And I mean, and I'll say it that in the case of Le Mans, it doesn't matter because the plot of Le Mans is so minimal that it kind of fits with the kind of almost like verite documentary nature of the film itself. And in the case of Grand Prix, it's much more kind of florid soap opera-y. But there are so many just like immortal great lines that you get out of that kind of cheesy soap opera plot that for me that completely redeems it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's like a question with a lot of movies too, whether it's like, is this technically a good movie or do I just enjoy watching it? Which is like, for me, there's a bunch of movies that I love watching that like I would not make an argument for them being like technically great movies. You know what I mean? Or like But anyway,
Yeah.
let's get back to that Spectra.
It's another. I mean, it is another episode.
Yeah.
Okay. Trouble was they get a tire at the Walmart. Trouble was it was 5 p.m. and I had another 5 hours to go to Butte. Saddled up and said fuck it, kept driving. Sun was setting and I was seeing beautiful mountains on the horizon for the first time in my small life. And that's when the spindles of clouds started touching earth. And I saw also for the first time in my life the infant kickings of a tornado.
Hell yeah.
Kept pressing on because it was flat land and there wasn't a spot to stop anywhere to be seen. The spindle passed and the sun set. Darkness swallowed every square inch of sight. That's when I passed through the Rockies. Hairpin twists and turns and sharp cuts left and right as you plummet vertical with no guardrails in complete darkness, exhausted after days of driving. Jesus! White-knuckled it the whole way and felt the sweetest relief when I saw the blue neon halo casinos in Butte, Montana rear up out of one of those terrifying twists thousands of feet up. Best part is, Peter, that's not the horror story. That's just the setup. So there's a lot of red herrings in there, but I feel like it's good. It's setting the table. It's setting the stage.
I was sure the tornado would do it.
You know?
I'm excited. This is a good story.
We've got a rusty Kia Spectra. You've got tornadoes. You've got Doomed Love. You've got flat tires in the middle of nowhere. And Ghost Town. Super spooky. And vertiginous mountain roads. Okay.
That's great.
The horror story is after 2 years of Dolores succumbing to mold and moisture from the cold damp of Portland. Only a couple of times growing actual fungus on the carpets. After the long, grueling attempt to salvage a dying love, I decided to move back east. This is the first I've heard. I mean, when you go to Portland is a crazy city, and the Pacific Northwest in general, but Portland especially, because it is. If you're like me, if you like to walk around and like car spot, find cool old cars that are just drivers, you know, not enthusiast owned diaper wiped you know, toys, but actual cars that people just you know have been driving and for 30 plus years and have never gotten rid of because why bother. Pacific Northwest is full of that shit, and Portland is like a living museum of it. And I've always thought like that is the place where like a car can literally live forever. But that's interesting about rain and moisture, because it is rainy, Pacific Northwest, but actual like mold and fungus and stuff. I don't know how common that is. Maybe you had a leak.
I think it's pretty common.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a buy some bulk silica packets and pray kind of situation, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's like, I imagine cars that come from Portland as being not rusty but very musty.
Yeah.
Very stinky.
Yeah. Well, so it was with Dolores. I decided to move back east, see what I can of the Southwest, make my way through the Grand Canyon, Texas, Louisiana, and back up to Buffalo. Call it stupidity or quixotic hubris of early mid-20s-something, trying to see a few new things before, quote, settling down. But I had the car inspected at a Jiffy Lube, that's the stupidity part, before I went. No problems there, ready to hit the road. Man, I got to the Northern California redwoods. I'm in an Airstream camper on the dunes of the beach. Relief at last. Beautiful night. Listening to the waves of the Pacific, looking up at the stars. At peace with the past, no anxieties about the future. Next morning, I get up to drive to a national forest, and I'm smelling gas fumes all around my car. And I look under the car, nothing funny. I look around, not seeing anything. Well, whatever. Have myself a time in the woods. Sure enough, though, I get anxious about that smell, and I take it into a shop. Old man comes around, ducks under in one of them wheelies, and says, "Oh, your fuel tank is slightly cracked open." Oh boy. I ask him, well, what can I do? He says, nothing. The undercarriage is completely rusted to shit. He's like, not only would I have to special order that fuel tank because it's a 2008 Kia Spectra, but the straps holding it in and the bolts and the entire bottom of your car is so rusted, I would not even be certain I could replace it at all. I don't even know where to bolt it without it falling out. Oh boy. I explain my situation. I'm 4,000 miles from home, and I ask him, well, shit, in your professional opinion, how far do you think I could make it? He looks at me so sternly and just says, flat as fact, you know it only takes a spark? And then he shakes his head, tells me to scrap it, and walks away. Now, this is real horror because, I literally, I'm inside of our little back office behind our house, and not more than probably 12, 14 feet directly in front of me is a 1988 Saab with
ready to go.
That I think that I've said to myself, you know, it only takes a spark. The gas tank is not leaking yet, but everything else, yeah. I mean, this is a Buffalo. It's a Buffalo Kia, man. It's like that's what happens. So car needs to be scrapped. I instead decide to hold my breath and pray the whole way to Oakland because I'm poor and stupid and stranded and scared and I don't know what to do. And I make it there. Spend a few days ignoring it with my friend, a pristine-looking PhD student at Berkeley, one of the nicest guys I know, but without a blemish, living in the nice thought space of academia. Suffice to say, my time comes and I got a boogie to my next stop in LA. I do my diligence to check the status of the fuel tank. I crawl under. There's a puddle. Bad omen. I don't know that that's an omen, really. I think that's
it's just evidence.
That's just bad.
Yeah.
I think the omen, the thing that it is portending is upon you.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're post-omen at this point.
I think the omen part was buying a Kia from Buffalo.
The omen happened at some point prior to buying the Kia in Buffalo. There's an omen that you missed. You missed the omen entirely.
The whole story has been omens and portents thus far.
Yeah.
Oh, nothing omens, portents, nothing else.
I reach up to the fuel tank itself. Oh, God. My fingers sink into a crevasse of rust that has cracked completely open and is tuggable, which with each prodding touch, more gas comes out. Bad news. I drive immediately to the nearest junkyard, which requires multiple highways and weird twists and turns. At one point on an exit turn, a car flicks a cigarette out of the window and it rolls under my car. Is Gabriel kind of gilding the lily here a little bit with it seems like there's so many near misses.
Yeah.
You know?
So much has happened.
I'm not casting any.
Gabriel, a man after my own heart. This is exactly how I tell stories.
A cigarette rolls under the car. The prophetic voice of the old mechanic comes ringing into my stomach, and my heart drops into my loins. I make my way to a severely unfortunate part of town where I am under a bridge with multiple trash can fires and a long row of encampments, which is nothing new to me after years in Southeast Portland, but, you know, everything I have ever owned is crammed in a car that is on the verge of dying right here.
Been there.
I get to the junkyard, and there's a line of people down the block who pay to get in, scrap parts, and sell it to the yardsman there for cash. I call my friend and ask for some help. He obliges because he's a sweetheart. I begin scrapping my own car of any trace of me. I set aside only the most valuable of my belongings, amounting to a backpack, a suitcase, a duffel bag, and a couple boxes for the post office. It's amazing how many of your worldly possessions you can leave behind when you're in a pinch. Let everyone pick at what's left. They need it more than me. It's not worth anything as a whole anymore, but the parts are gold for everyone down the block standing in that line. My pristine friend pulls up in his nice car that he bought with his fiancée, financed on a decent loan, playing box fugues in a sweater vest while fires and open-air drug markets abound all around us, which phases me not a cent, but which I can see in his eyes he realizes is a place he hopes never to see again in his life, save for this one desperate call from me, ha ha, and he drives me to the post to ship everything away and buy one ticket down to some friends in Southern California. The majority of my entire existence up to that point in a rusted-out, leaky 2008 Kia Spectra, finding new homes and being salvaged by those much more in need than me. But anyway, I made my way back east eventually and resettled with family and friends just fine. Got a letter in the mail just the other day from that junkyard saying, "Hey, we identified your car. If you don't mind, we're going to crunch the frame down into a block and sell it." Fine by me. Ha ha.
That's a nice story.
Liquid into the cube, always good.
That was a great story. Thank you, Gabriel. That was very nice.
Yes, thank you for taking the time.
I will say, this is not advice by any stretch of the imagination. Gas is way harder to ignite than you think it is. And I think liquid gas... The cigarette thing, as soon as he said, yeah, I ran over the cigarette, I was like, yeah, he's fine. It's like, that's not that big a deal. And I would say, like, if you ever try to do that, poured a bunch of gas out and thrown a lit match or a cigarette on it, nothing happens. You got to get it vaporized before it gets explosive. So, Gabriel, what you did was fine. And you probably could still be driving that car today.
It was a kind and charitable act for you to pay forward, and kind of, and I also think that there's kind of an inherent worth in just kind of giving your shit away, and
totally,
and especially like at that kind of moment in one's life to just really just like, you know what, just cutting it, just chiseling everything down to just the absolute minimum and starting from nothing. So I think you did yourself a solid there. But Rory's right. I remember my dad telling me that car, because we would watch TV, you'd watch like Chips or whatever, and the car fucking rolls down the hill and explodes and he would just scoff, and he says, "Cars don't explode like that." And I said, "Well, how do you know?" And he says, "Because we used to try to do that."
That's the same with me. You'd try to shoot at the gas tank with a gun over and over again. You'd put a million holes in it and nothing happens. Just all the gas comes out.
And he would tell me stories about working at a gas station when he was a teenager, and there would just be a bucket of gasoline that they would like soak parts in, just to clean them, and they would also just like put their cigarettes out in it. They would throw the the cigarette stub into the gasoline, and
again, not advice. This is not. I must clarify.
Yeah,
we don't
this
know
is my
what's going
dad
on
saying this. I haven't done this.
Yeah, we should try it though. On the pod.
No one on this podcast is giving you actionable or usable advice about how to set or not set things on fire with gasoline, or this is not Strat DB for setting things on fire with gasoline. We have no guidance for you.
It's all.
I would say, go ahead. I
was just going to say it's all anecdotal. That's all I was going to add.
Yeah.
I would say too. I love the experience of getting in a car that you have no confidence in and having to make a long road trip in it. It is one of my absolute favorite things to do. I've not done it in a long time, but it is such a good feeling because it's like wow, I made it to the end of the block. Wow, I made it, onto the freeway. Wow, I'm still on the freeway. And then like, oh, I made it out of town. I'm in a different town. I'm in a different county. And it's like every step, it's like, what was that noise? Did something happen? Did you feel that? Yeah. Did you feel that shudder? And it's like, but it's so, I don't know. It's like, it's an adventure. And I'd say that like, obviously, I think even in my 20s or whatever, like I've always been in a position of privilege to be able to enjoy that experience, knowing that if the worst happened, like there are people who I could call to come bail me out. I would obviously never call anyone. I would rather die, or rather freeze to death. To call even my best friend to assist me. But theoretically, I'm in a position of privilege because I do have stuff to fall back on. But man, is that fun! That it's just such a good feeling to be like out there, just like I've got a Leatherman and
exactly. Part of part of that privilege is just the confidence of knowing that in a lot of cases when something, a lot of the things that are likely to go wrong and leave you stranded in a situation like that are things that you can fix, and you have the knowledge and experience, and some tools or whatever you bring with you, and in a lot of cases, there are things that routine things that crop up on those kinds of trips. I remember the first road trip that I made in the Rusty Saab. I drove to, and I think I had only had the car for like a week or two. And I drove it to Chicago from Rochester, and not, I didn't have any reason to think that it wouldn't make it, but I also had no reason to be, particularly confident in it. But it ran great the whole way. And I remember being just outside of Chicago, and it's now like late evening traffic, rush hour traffic in Chicago. And there's a guy in a brand new S-Class Mercedes right next to me. And I'm just thinking like, dude, you dumb motherfucker. You just paid like $100,000 for that thing. And this car I just bought for $2,500, and I just drove it. I just drove it like 10 hours from Rochester, New York to here. Like, and it did just as good as your Mercedes. Isn't that amazing?
We're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
We're doing the exact same thing.
And now we're just sitting in traffic just the same way. Of course, the car did break down on the way.
Sure.
Maddie, do you have a ghost story? A car ghost story? A car horror story? A scary car story?
Let me think. So when I moved talking to my SM48. When I moved me and my old roommate to Iowa, I was coming from Pennsylvania, eastern Pennsylvania, and I was going to get him from Oregon, and we did all the math in the world between U-Hauls and flights and whatever and this and that, and the cheapest way to do it was for me to drive to Iowa in my car, park my car, rent an SUV in Iowa, and drive the SUV to Oregon and drive us back and drop the SUV off back in Iowa so you don't have the drop fee for dropping it off in a different location or whatever. So that's what I did. Sure. Drove out. This was the first week of January 2021. So I drove out. I had to bend south. I did not go through Colorado. I went kind of like through Arizona, up through California, out through Grants Pass, a lot of fog, not a big deal. This is how I tell stories, completely opposite from Gabe, where I'm like, I was in California. I was like kind of like falling asleep in Arizona on the highway, like doing that thing where you're like, I'm good, and you're like braking on like the highway because you like fell asleep for like 5 seconds. It was like 3 a.m. No one else on the road. It's the wintertime in Arizona. No one's out there.
Public podcast service announcement.
Pull over.
And I believe I've said this to you numerous times, Maddie.
I know you have.
Over the years. No, when that happens, pull the fuck over.
Don't do what I do.
Rest
do not
your
do as I do.
eyeballs. It might only take like 15 minutes of just, and you might not sleep, but just that's your body saying, that's your body saying, it's predicting the future, and the future is that you're gonna fucking die.
Yes. So far so good.
Your death is imminent.
That's the problem.
That shit is
I've been lucky so far, and so I'm like, I could go for I could probably do another half hour before I find an actual rest stop. Anyway, I get up to Oregon. I grab my buddy. We get him and the cats and all of his things in the SUV, and we start our way back. We can't go west. We can't go east. I mean, back through Oregon out to get east because the mountains are all closed and I can't put snow chains on the SUV and blah, 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 blah. So we go back south. We go through Reno. We're going up. We're going through Wyoming, eastbound through Wyoming. And as we are coming down towards Cheyenne, we're aiming for Cheyenne. We're up at a pretty high elevation, and it's snowing. And we're checking the weather. We're like, that's a lot of weather alerts coming up. Like, well, it might clear up in a little bit. So, we're starting down this mountain towards Cheyenne. And as we're like halfway down, we have like, I want to say like 5 feet of visibility in front of us. The snow is like coming down pretty heavy. The SUV that I rented doesn't have like properly it has just like a little dial you turn in the center console area that's like snow mode, which is not reassuring. This is why I'm big on tactile feel. If I turn a little beep and it doesn't feel like anything, but it's assuring me the car is in snow mode now, I'm like, okay, I don't like that, but all right. So we're doing like 10 miles an hour down this mountain, looking around, and as we can see, there's like tractor trailers like jackknifed off into the middle of the fucking like down the incline away from us down the center, and there's like all these people like pulled over with their flashers on, and I'm like just holding the wheel, and we're just like vibrating at 10 miles an hour down this mountain, and I'm like, this is going really good. And my buddy, who I haven't seen in like a year, is like this is great. This is going really well. And so we get all the way down the mountain to Cheyenne, and like the snow is starting to like taper off, and it's like, it's nighttime. So we have so no visibility nighttime. Roads are bad. There's like trucks that have just like fallen off the road everywhere. And so we get to Cheyenne and we get to the Motel 6. We check in, and I'm like, I'm the rental with the Georgia plate. Do you need the plate? And he's like, no, I'll know. Cool. So we go in and we sit down, and I'm like, so I feel like we've really bonded. I haven't seen you in a while. And he was like, no. Yeah. This has been really good. And for the whole 2 years we lived in Iowa, every time we saw a driver do something stupid in Iowa, he would turn to me and he would say, they would have died on that mountain. And so it was in the moment, it was a little spooky, but all turned out fine.
Fine. That reminds me of a story when we were going south in Michigan for some reason for a holiday, and my dad, we had this conversion van, and we were watching semis jackknife everywhere. All of a sudden, like, it just hit a really slippery spot, and this car ahead of us tried to swerve around a semi, lost control, and went into the woods and hit like a berm. And my dad was like, I'm going to go check on him. And everybody stayed in the car. And my dad was down there for a long time. And then finally, like, there was an ambulance that came up. And my mom was like, is everything okay down there? And he goes, the driver lost his foot. And she was like, what do you mean? She was like, he lost his foot. And she was like, what? And he was like, his foot was like his leg was through the floorboard. And his foot was still in the car. Uh-huh. And I was like... I don't know how that happens exactly. It must have been a pretty bad pretty bad mangle.
Jesus.
But that image has really stuck with me. My dad was like, yeah, we tied a seatbelt around his leg and just waited for the people to come. But who knows if he lived. He said he was also having a heart attack, he said, the driver. It's like, fair enough.
I would.
You know, it's a kind of a
Lose
high
your
stress
foot.
deal.
It's a little stressful.
Anyway,
Damn.
those are some good tales.
Spooky scary.
Yeah.
I do have one genuine ghost story that is really only tangentially automotively related. Maddie, you know this story.
Yes! I love this one! Oh, thank God. It's going to be on the pod. It's going to be immortalized. Yes. Okay.
Rory, I don't think I've ever told it to you. In 2015, the Mountain Goats played at this place called the Bijou Theater in Knoxville, Tennessee. Bijou Theater is in this big building that sorry, to find my notes. Here we go. Third oldest building in Knoxville on its original foundation is the claim. It was originally a hotel that opened in 1817. Andrew Jackson stayed there during his presidency. One of those places where like every president, during the time that it was a hotel, stayed at this hotel. It was later used as a Union hospital during the Civil War, and Sherman's headquarters during the Civil War. Later, after the war in the early 1900s, they kind of redid the building, carved out this big part of it, and built a theater, which is still there. And this is the theater that we're playing. Marx Brothers, Harry Houdini, everybody ever has played. It's one of these places, like handful of places around the country where it's like, like the list of people who have played there, like include people like Harry Houdini, but also the Ramones, So anyway, we get to this theater, super cool, super old. I go next door to get some dinner. There's a little restaurant attached to it, and I just sit down at the bar, as I would typically do on tour. And guy sitting next to me, we strike up a conversation. He seems to know a lot about the place, and it turns out that he used to, like for years, he was the building manager there. So, of course, everybody, like the bartender knew him, and so I start asking him all these questions. He knows all the history that I've just kind of laid out, stuff that he was telling me, and lots of just cool, crazy stories from the 19th century, and lots of lore. And he gets done, and I say, just kind of jokingly, I say, I mean, it's got to be haunted, right? And he says, "Oh yeah." And I say, "Well, what? Well, what is there a story here?" And he says, "Well, I mean, sort of." He tells me that, basically everybody who has worked in this place has experienced some version of just weird, inexplicable phenomena, right? Things like lights being on in parts of the building that where it's physically impossible for you to see light coming from there. Weird noises, just, all the kind of just your classic, typical spooky apparition shit, right? Yeah, cue the sound effects. And he said that when he was like working there as a building manager, he would often be there super late at night when alone in the building. And he said he was just kind of used to hearing stuff and seeing stuff. It never really, none of it really fazed him ever. But he says one night he was down in the theater itself, underneath the stage. There's like a storeroom. There's some stairs that go down at either side of the back of the stage, and there's a storeroom under there. And he was down there, just like cutting some wood. They have like some tools and machines and whatever. So he's down there just kind of doing some work. Super late at night, nobody there, and in the middle of just sawing these planks, he just out of nowhere, he's just gripped with this just kind of what he described as just this kind of like animal terror, just this pure fear. And he, he's got like ear protection, ear muffs, whatever on. He like, throws them off, and he just races up the stairs just to get out of the basement. And he doesn't even know why, right? But he just had to get out of there. It's just this instinctive, just crazy fear that he described. Gets out. It's super late. He's just like, okay, fuck it, I'm going home. And he does. He doesn't tell anybody about it. A few months later, like one of those ghost hunter TV shows, gets in touch. I mean, this place is kind of, it's famously haunted, right? I mean, it's kind of a known thing. These people get in touch. They say, hey, we want to do an episode at your theater. He says, yeah, sure, come on down. And so they set up a time and date, and they come on the appointed day, and it's just a handful of people. There's, a couple of the hosts of the show, some crew, technical people, camera people, and then, and they've got their various kind of ghost hunting apparati. And then there's also a woman who's introduced to my dude as a medium, and they bring her along just to kind of add what she can in terms of just her sensory perception. So they all arrive, and they ask my dude, they say, hey, can you just give us a tour of the entire building, the whole premises, right? Mind you, big parts of this are just kind of like, are not used, are not in use. It's just, it's still kind of this abandoned hotel. They say, we want to see every place that you can take us to, but do not tell us anything, right? We don't want your thumb on the scale. We don't want to have any kind of additional, they're doing their due diligence and trying to make this genuine, right?
Very scientific.
Yeah,
ghost
exactly.
hunting.
Yes.
Yeah.
So okay, yeah, sure, of course. So he does. He gives them the grand tour. Takes like an hour. They start at the top. They work their way down to the bottom, including the room beneath the stage. And when they're done, they go back out, and they're kind of on the floor of the theater. And while these guys are kind of talking and strategizing, because they're going to spend the night there, right? And they're figuring out, okay, what places do we want to put the cameras? Where do we want to put the test equipment, et cetera, et cetera. The woman, the medium, takes my dude aside, and she says, "Hey, how about that room under the stage, that basement?" And he says, "Yeah, what about it?" She says, "It's fucked up, man. Something really bad happened in there." Okay, so that's part one, right? Part two is, and of course, like, I hear this story, it's like, okay, that's a fucking great story, right? So I'm running around telling everybody, it's like, you gotta hear this, right? And nobody else wants anything to do with it, you know? But I can't help it, you know? End of the night comes, and it's like, I gotta go down there. I can't not go down there, right? And, you know, we're all loaded up, and I was like, fuck it, I'm going down there. So we play our show. Yeah, we're all done. And before we leave, I go down into the basement underneath the stage. And whatever. It's exactly what he described. It's a storeroom. There's, you know, a circular saw in keeping with his story. And just a bunch of just random shit, and you know, it's not particularly spooky. I am not seized with terror or animal fear, you know, other than just like the kind of like, ooh, that, you know, that of course you're bringing to it yourself, but whatever. And get in the Sprinter, and we shove off to the next show. In the days that followed, we played the next night in Charlotte, neighborhood theater.
I was there.
Okay, yeah, yeah. I think that's the you met
your ladies,
my wife,
yes.
and yes, my ladies
I did.
that night. Okay, I remember that. So we're playing that show, and something's going screwy with my bass. The little stud, the little metal knob at the kind of like where your strap attaches, kind of the top strap. It's the screw is stripped, and it's coming out, right? So my strap, like whatever the last song is before the kind of middle break where John does his solo bit, the strap just comes off, and I'm just playing with no strap. But okay, no biggie, because I know I can go backstage during the solo break and fix it, right? Because in my bass case, because this is kind of like a recurring issue, right? This thing with this little metal knob, and I have a screwdriver in there, and it's usually just a matter of just like jamming some other shit in a little hole and screwing the screw back in, and it'll hold. And in my bass case is a screwdriver that I got from road-tested Saabs in Indianapolis, which is where the Saab, after that drive to Chicago to do some recording in 2009, I drove down to Bloomington, or intended to visit a friend, and the exhaust, that was the first time that the exhaust fell out of the car, and because it was completely rusted up. And it happened just outside of Indianapolis, and I had my brand new iPhone. I had finally caved and bought a fucking smartphone. This is 2009. And I was like, ooh, maybe I can use this to find like a Saab shop. And sure enough, there was a Saab specialty mechanic, like literally like 5 minutes from where the exhaust fell out of my car. car. And I was just like, are you kidding? And I think it was like a Saturday even, and I called the number thinking like, there's no way this guy's going to be there. Dude picks up, and I tell him what's going on. He's like, yeah, bring it by, and so I get a tow and bring the car to this guy. Anyway, car was fixed, and he gave me just one of those little plastic 2-ended screwdrivers where it's and it's printed, it's got the business name on it. Well, that went into my base case and has stayed there ever since, except on this night in Charlotte, I have 10 minutes during the solo break to fix this bass. The screwdriver, which has been in that case at this point for like 4 or 5 years, no, more than that, 2009 to 2015, so 6 years, it's nowhere to be found. I'm pulling all of the, and there's a little pocket inside the base case. You keep your strings in there, and you keep your, whatever else, your strap, your picks, your tools, and that's where the screwdriver lived, and it's not there. And I'm like, what the fuck? How the hell did I lose this screwdriver? It's always there. And I'm turning the thing upside down. I'm looking in every other compartment that it could possibly be. The fucking screwdriver's not there. I'm just like, fuck. Avel, our stage manager, tech roadie guy, Avel. I'm like, Avel, do you have a screwdriver? He's like, shit, man, I don't know, it's always in there. I'm like, I know. Where the fuck did it go? Well, I didn't find it. Had to go back out and sit on a stool, play the rest of this set sitting on a stool because I couldn't fucking fix the thing.
I've never seen that again before or since.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Well, so the next day we are in Birmingham, Alabama, Saturn. And I'm like, okay, we're going to get to this fucking place. We're going to unload. And then Brandon, I need you to give me the keys to the Sprinter because I need to take the Sprinter to a Home Depot. I need to buy a bunch of toothpicks. I need to buy wood glue, and I need to buy a screwdriver, so I can fucking like fix this thing like for real. Okay, cool, man. So I go to the Home Depot. I get all the shit I need. I go back to the venue, go inside, pull out my bass to fix it, open the little center pocket. What is sitting there on top of everything else? My screwdriver.
I was gonna say shrunken head, but screwdriver makes more sense.
The screwdriver that was MIA the night before. It's like, okay, who's fucking with me, right? Like, what the
Yeah.
What the hell? So I'm just like beside myself. Whatever, fix the bass. Next day, we're driving to, I think, Athens, Georgia. Flat tire in the Sprinter. Does the Sprinter have a spare? No. So we're stranded across the street from a giant, like, weirdly Pontiac distribution, like parts place. I got like this big like phone book full of Pontiac parts, for your 72 Firebird, and a Waffle House. But we spent most of the day there with a flat tire. I don't remember how it eventually got fixed or ironed out, or how we made it to the show or whatever. But basically, like, all the, like, in the days that followed this show, the Bijou show, and me going down to the haunted basement, just one thing after another, just all this just crazy, weird, cursed shit kept happening. And I'm on the phone with Patricia, my wife, who grew up Catholic, and but like Latin American Catholic, which is like it's that kind of where it's like mixed in with some kind of neo magical realism kind of stuff, right? And anyway, I tell her, I confess to her. I say, see, well, it's weird. Like all this weird stuff keeps happening, and the other night, like we met this guy at the venue, and he was telling all these ghost stories about the venue, and then I went down to this place where he had like this really creepy experience, and this woman who was a medium like told him that like some really horrible thing had happened in there, and I went down, and she's just like, "You what? Why would you go down there?" And I'm like, I didn't think it was just, it's like, man, I don't believe in this shit, right? I don't take this shit seriously. I'm a rational materialist dude, okay? It's like, this is all hokum. And it's like, and she's just like, you need to apologize. And I'm just like, you need to apologize to whatever entity or energy you offended or upset, and you need to do it in complete earnestness and seriousness, or these things are going to keep happening. And it was kind of like enough. Like there had been enough stuff where it's just like, okay, fine, I'll apologize. Like, I'll apologize. Okay, I'm sorry, ghost. I'm sorry to the spirits and the entities of the spirit world. I apologize for not taking seriously the stories, and I'm sorry that I went into the basement under the stage at the Bijou Theater, and I won't do it again, and I'm very sorry. and the weird shit stopped happening.
Wait, nothing bad has happened to you since then?
I mean, nothing. I mean,
I'm just joking.
On that tour, the mysteriously bad things on that tour, those stopped happening. Now there is a second kind of epilogue, and that is that we did go back to the Bijou Theater a few years later.
I was there for that one,
and of course,
you told me the whole story.
And I asked, I went to the bar to have dinner again, and I asked the bartender. I said, "Hey, so that guy Eric, he used to be he was here last time we played. We had dinner together, and he told me all these amazing stories, and he said he used to be the building manager here for a long time." And the bartender just goes like, his face just goes white, and he says, "Eric died in 2007 in a terrible accident with a circular saw." No, come on. No.
I was like, the whole fucking time you were telling me that story, I was waiting for someone to be like, "Oh, Eric died a long time ago." There it is.
Okay, everything else in that story is real.
Yeah.
The last part I just made up. The last part is a joke.
That was a treat.
But I swear,
that was a treat just for us.
The rest of it is real.
Cut the part where he said he was lying. Let's leave it.
Do more of my Foley. I've been over here turning my little effects knobs over here and like.
Good stuff.
That's so good, Peter. I tell so many people that you have to apologize to the ghost part of the story. That's such a like top of the cream of the crop wife guy thing. Is your wife is like, you have to apologize to the ghost, and you're like, yeah, probably.
All right. Well, I don't know that this episode will come out in time for tomorrow, Halloween, but we will still be very much in the spooky season when people hear this. So we should wish everybody a a healthy and safe spooky season, and whatever you do, do not joke about fucking ghosts, okay? Because that shit is real.
Great phrasing for that one. Perfect. I'm leaving.
I'm sure everybody knows what you mean.
Leaving that untouched. No edits on that one.
Just Maddie,
Print
just
it.
cut the episode off after that.
Ba 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 ba.
Stay tired. Don't joke about fucking ghosts.
Stay spooky. Stay tired.